Welcome back, Duck Badger Radio, AM 915, DuckBadgerRadio.com. Pleased to be joined by Rabbi Melissa Weintraub. Melissa, thanks for being on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
We're sure excited about this. Melissa is going to be in town, folks, this Wednesday at the University of St. Thomas, and is going to be doing a presentation, and you should join her. It's Wednesday night, November 2nd at 7:30 at the O'Shaughnessy Education Auditorium on the University of St. Thomas campus over there in St. Paul, and it's free. And Melissa's going to talk there, as she will hear, about waging peace in the context of a violent conflict. Melissa, thanks for being on the show. Tell us how you got yourself involved in this conversation of what's going on in the Middle East and what's going on in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and how did you get into this conversation?
Well, I think that this was my calling in life. This was we all have to discern what is our contribution to make, and whether it's the magic hand or divine guidance or whatever it was, many different things led me into this work. And I first went into the West Bank on my second day ever in Israel about 15 years ago, and heard Palestinian stories for the first time, engaged with Palestinians on the ground, and very quickly became deeply connected to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through the human beings that I engaged with and became close to, and the lines of love and care that formed between me and them, and found myself in an increasingly unique position over the years as someone who was moving back and forth between pockets of communities who were obsessed with each other but had virtually no contact with each other's lived experience or basic humanity, and needed to expand by orders of magnitude the unique position that I was in. So have been involved in bringing more than 1,000 high-level Jewish leaders to Palestinian areas of the West Bank in the last 5 years. We've been the most significant non-military Jewish presence in Palestinian areas since before the Second Intifada.
Now, for those who would hear this conflict sort of in your news cycle, and they know there's something going on, when you give people the little elevator speech about what's going on in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, how do you put it? What do you tell people the issue is?
I think non-recognition is really at the heart of this conflict. The Jewish people confronted a real existential threat in this century, and not only in this century. And there's just deep fear of not being recognized for our right to exist. You'll hear people in the Jewish community say this again and again. And Palestinians actually also really feel a deep existential sense of not being recognized for their right to be able to control their own destinies and have their kind of fundamental dignity respected. And both sides kind of believe that the other is only after their own their annihilation. And a lot of the work that we do is trying to restore a sense of trust that there is a partner on the other side who, if they believed that the other recognized their right to exist, would be willing to take all kinds of concessions and compromises to end the intransigent conflict.
And there's people who
really born in non-recognition and distrust.
And by non-recognition, you mean the fear that people have that the other side, in this case the Palestinians, might think the Israeli opinion is they don't have any right to be there, and if the Israelis had their way, they would drive them out completely, and the fear the other way. Well,
exactly. They would destroy us if they could.
Yeah, and you do kind of hear that thing, right? You hear that in the U.S. news cycle about Iran will say things, or the president of Iran will say things that will make people think that the annihilation of Israel is, their goal and so on. So there gets to be this fear that they're going to be destroyed. Well, talk to us a little bit about what you think regular folks, non-governmental, representatives can do inside of these conflicts, because it seems like it kind of requires, movement at such a high level of government action. That what is it that you're asking people to see when they go there, and how does that work if it's not, if you're not the Secretary of State or something?
Well, our work is driven by an assumption that governments sign agreements, but that people make peace, that the high-level officials actually follow, and people lead. And we target mid-level leaders, not grassroots, but not elected officials either. We target people who have the ears of elected officials on both sides, who have constituencies and networks, and who are opinion leaders and multipliers. Bring them together, and when they, what I was just talking about that deep sense of distrust, there's been a lot of polls that have come out over the last decade that basically substantiate that 2/3 of each population wants exactly the same solution, but 75% of each population believes that only they want it, and therefore they're not willing to take the steps that would be necessary to put it into effect. So a lot of what we're trying to do is just restore that basic sense of trust, humanity, recognition of the other's claims and understandings of the situation and what's happened here, so that they will be able to move their elected officials towards the steps they need to take.
Hey, Melissa, this is John, the sidekick on the show. Let's back up just a little bit. First of all, Will, who is a non-believer and a heavenly creator, was curious as to that women could be rabbis. Can you describe that process for you as you were growing? Is this something that you knew that you wanted to do? Was to be a rabbi, or did you see that as a means to an end in the pursuit of this calling to help facilitate peace between Palestinians and the Israelis?
I think I knew I wanted to be a peace builder before I knew I wanted to be a rabbi. At some point, realized that this was the best way I could be an academic and an activist and a therapist all at once, that I could be a kind of intellectual and action-oriented person in the heart of my community. But my work is definitely driven by religious and spiritual concerns, and I see peace work as the greatest expression of what it means to serve God.
So are you married? Do you have children and stuff? What?
I am married as of 3 months ago, but we do not yet have children.
Yeah, happy marriage.
Thank you.
Hey, I saw that you won the Grinnell Prize, which is also called the MacArthur Genius Grant, which I think is the greatest title for something ever. Back in May, did that blow your mind that happened, or do you know that was coming down the and the prize of that was what, Melissa?
That was $100,000.
That's right. I'm going to tease you about that.
Went to the organization that I founded, but I was utterly stunned. I mean, there were 1,200 nominations from 66 countries, and this was not something that any of us expected. We were honored enough to be nominated.
Did your fiance know that he was marrying an official genius? Now that you've been declared a
I would
genius.
Never let him forget that.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Hey, Melissa, can you hang on through the break? I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about what you're going to be sharing on Wednesday over at the J. Phillips Center, and how people can be involved in this, and what kind of advice you have for folks. Okay, so folks, stick with us here. This is Rabbi Melissa Weintraub, and if you head over to the Doug Pagitt Radio page on Facebook, you can find the information, or go to stthomas.edu, and you'll find the information there about her Waging Peace in the Context of Violent Conflict presentation this Wednesday, November 2nd, 7:30 over at St. Thomas. So hold on with us, folks, over the break, and we'll chat with Rabbi Melissa Weintraub here after the break.